Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's on the Pile. I'm Nathan Besner, and joining me is Shane Lee,
What's up?
Jane Belcastro,
Hello.
Matt Wagner,
It's Wagner.
and Jenner.
Ivy!
It's French animation and unintentional Paul Giamatti double feature this week as we explore April in the Extraordinary World, a steampunk adventure with super science, bumbling police, and lizard people, followed by Ernest and Celestine, a heartwarming tale of oppression, class warfare, and discrimination, based on the book series. Let's start with April in the Extraordinary World. This one has been on my pile for a while, mostly because steampunk is kind of a pet genre of mine. I'm not really into the cosplay aspect of it, but
Is there another aspect?
I think so
I
in
know, I'm
film
kidding.
and yeah, okay.
Well, you do like goggles.
I do like goggles. I don't know. I've always loved the steampunk look, and I even tried to make it into a feature film once called Nicole, which was going to be a nice little steampunk adventure, but none of the investors I talked with really cared about steampunk, so it went in the vault.
Eh.
I know it's had some mainstream success. You have I guess, well, success being arbitrary here, but Wild Wild West was steampunk. In a way, and that was
Realistically, that was one of those quote-unquote successes that buried the subgenre for another half decade to a decade.
You mean like Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow?
Yeah,
Aw.
that buried it for the half decade following.
Yeah, that's why I'd still consider it a.
Now, I liked Sky Captain. I liked Sky
I
Captain.
I remember liking it too.
Yeah.
I only saw it the
Me
one
too.
time.
It's one of the few films that Angelina Jolie didn't poison.
Oh, Hackers is a perfect film.
Sorry.
Anyway, I do still consider the genre niche, in that it's just hasn't had that kind of mainstream success. There isn't the real moneymaker steampunk adventure you can point out. There are projects that have tried or have peppered it into already successful things, that sort of thing.
Varying degrees of cult objects.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was on my pile too. I'd heard of it. I'm also a huge fan of steampunk, pretty much stemming from my fandom of Final Fantasy VI, which is still my favorite in the series. Which is
Right
think the most
hell on.
the most steampunk of the series, and I've always been yearning for some kind of good steampunk movie to come out. So I'm glad we got to see this.
It wasn't on my pile. I stumbled across this a couple years ago. Got around to watching it, and I've seen it I think 4 times now in the last couple of months. Anyone who gets the physical copy, please be aware that the English language and the French language versions of the film are actually different tracks, so you can't switch between them. Like turn on the audio and flip through the different audio options when you were watching it on a DVD player. Just a little quirk there that threw me for a while. I thought for the longest time that my copy didn't have a French audio track.
Yeah, no, I kind of wish that I had seen the French audio track on this one. We ended up watching it on Amazon. Granted, it is actually a pretty good dub.
Yeah.
It's decent.
There were some moments where I felt a distinct shortcoming, but that may be purely suppositional because, of course, I haven't actually seen the French version yet. But this had been on my pile for a while. It's one of those things that, well, when it first came up in our discussions, I was not entirely certain whether I actually had a copy or not. You guys know how my video collection goes, but it turns out that I didn't. But at this point, I actually now want to get one.
I watched it on Amazon too. I do wish that they had given the option of the French language track.
I know,
That-
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was a dub till I started. And also, like, a lot of us come from anime fandom, and we tend to be purists, or let's be real, snobs about the original language track.
Yeah, I mean,
So I was like,
you
no.
say potato, I say everybody says potato.
yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. When a film is animated in a foreign language, it is going to best suit its presentation in that foreign language. You may get the best, professional voice actors in the world to do it in English, but it's always going to be just that little bit off. And so long as you can, as what was it Bong Joon-ho said about getting over the hurdle of that 1-inch subtitle at the bottom of the screen, if you can get past that, then it opens up a whole new world for you.
I am going to allow 2 Acceptios Probat Regulam on that one,
Mm.
which is 1, the Spanish language dub of The Devil's Advocate was fuerte, as was the Spanish language dub of Evangelion.
Well, since
Never
he's
heard
been
that one.
seeing me,
Yeah.
we've been watching pretty much everything with subtitles because I have a few audio processing issues. I mean, it's just easier for me to read it.
Yeah.
Same thing, so it doesn't bother me at all. I'm
Yeah.
perfectly fine,
Un-
unless I'm sleepy.
We're
Then
pretty used. We're pretty used to
Then
it at
I'd
this
like
point.
to have
and
just audio.
we feel confident that this is one of those things that is only going to be a more acute for all the rest of y'all as time rolls forward.
Oh, yeah. Just to speak to the French dub of this particular one, it is quite a good dub. Having seen the English dub 3 times and now the French once, the English dub is quite passable as well. I mean, unless you're looking really close, you may not realize that it wasn't originally in English language. But the French language is just a touch better, and it does sort of suit the style a little better.
This is pure supposition, but I had the distinct feeling that the final scene probably would have made me cry if in the original French. I can't vouch for that, but it didn't quite nail it for me in the English. So
I was pretty sniffly.
Yeah.
Now I got sniffly during the scene where halfway through the movie where it appeared that Darwin the cat was dying. That definitely.
Oh yeah, we were
Yeah.
both like,
So
yeah, I was like,
Kleenex.
you guys are all cat owners, right? I'm not, and
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
a cat person. I'm like, what? I wonder how everyone's feeling about this scene. I mean, even I was like, oh, this sucks.
So I
But,
have to
it must
ask,
be worse.
how worried did you all get at the 3 separate times it looked like Darwin had died in the film, and were you planning revenge against me for suggesting this one?
Oh no, it was
not-
the first one. I knew that the cat's on the cover of the thing, and I mean they wouldn't spend so much time and detail on his nuts
Yeah.
if he wasn't going to last
Yes.
very long.
That was
Nuts
my
and butthole.
favorite thing about Darwin. His
Yeah,
butthole and
swear.
his nuts.
Those little furry
Darwin's
hairballs
junk did deserve a separate credit in the animation credits in its own right, but I was very, very, very worried at the first instance. I pretty much got where they were going with the second instance, but the third instance did have me wondering.
What? You mean I said that when he went up in the rocket, I said, okay, this cat's immortal, so he's not going to die. He's just going to float through space forever because the statistical possibility that he would land on the moon. That's pretty.
Well, depending on where it blows
thank
up.
goodness that he did. But I mean, I was just like,
And he
this little
was-
immortal cat's he's going to be completely insane in about 10 years, and they waited 50.
Yeah,
So-
he's there 50 years.
Yeah,
50
think,
years, no air, probably dying every 10 seconds. I don't even know how he was able to talk on the moon. Well, maybe
no.
those plants were giving off oxygen.
Exactly.
Think-
See?
Boom.
Think
Okay.
the kind of madness that the kid in Stephen King's The Long Jaunt ended up suffering. But that should get
That's
its
what I was
adaptation.
thinking.
That's getting an adaptation next year. I'm
Oh,
really
is it?
looking forward to
That's
that.
probably my favorite
Ah.
Stephen King story, and that story
Mine too.
I read
Mine
it when I was
too.
11, and it haunts me to this day.
Oh yeah, I read
Oh,
it
yeah,
as a
yeah.
very young kid as well, and
I do
yeah.
find it fascinating that my vote for best Stephen King story is a science
Richard-
fiction piece, but
and it's also a Richard Bachman story.
maybe
not-
in its original
isn't it?
publication. It was in. I read it in. It was. I want to say
Skeleton,
Skeleton.
yeah,
Crew.
Skeleton Crew, yeah.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I swear it was in with the Running Man one, and or what's that Skeleton?
No, those are novellas. I think the Jaunt is a short
Yeah,
story.
no, it wasn't in the Bachman books.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
back to April in the Extraordinary World.
Yes.
The only that I can think of acutely anti-steampunk film that I am aware of.
Okay, so
Well-
you're talking about film. See, I was like, what do you mean? There's plenty of anti-steampunk stuff out there, but I've read a lot of books.
Yeah,
So,
no, there's.
yeah.
I imagine there's a fair measure of dystopian steampunk fiction, but there's not a lot that has made it to film. Not least because it's one of those subgenres that's still sort of trying to, keep that ember glowing, so to speak. So this was interesting in a relatively nascent subgenre, just by virtue of being virulently opposed to the fundaments of the aesthetic of the subgenre in which it falls into.
Like, this is a
That's
bad era to
interesting.
live in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It's
it's
you don't see
steampunk
you don't see
dystopia.
Yeah.
exactly, and you don't see a lot of those, and
So-
that kind of gets some respect from me as much as anything else.
I have a sneaking suspicion that you're intended from the cover or the poster to actually realize that it's supposed to be dystopian, because I have been told that if you actually ask an actual French person, show them 2 Eiffel Towers, they will know it's a dystopia, because they're of the opinion that the actual Eiffel Tower is a big ugly eyesore that they can't get rid of because it brings in all the tourists.
That's funny.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
But the neat thing is when the second tower did come down,
Mhm.
I kept thinking, you know what this is? This is where history is fixing itself. It's like this parallel
It's working.
timeline kind of moves
It's-
itself into alignment with our timeline.
Mhm.
It's working toward it, conceivably. You figure, give it about 300 years, they may be meeting up with Star Trek at the same point that we do.
Oh my goodness! The thing I love was the Statue of Liberty was actually a giant cowboy
Yes,
with a gun.
giant cowboy. That was
As
amazing.
of course it was.
So I think we sort of
was.
buried the lead on this picture, in that I'm pretty sure that we all really liked this movie.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
Yeah.
and really recommend it pretty highly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Are any of you
Yeah.
familiar with the comic artist whose works this is based on? Jacques Tardy?
No. Jacques Tardy?
Yeah.
No, I'm
Sounds
not.
familiar,
no.
but no.
Okay.
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I know most of his work. Right.
Jacques Tardy, he's one of the more famous. I believe he's Belgian. I believe he's part of the Belgian comics group that you may be more familiar with. I think Tintin.
Tintin.
And,
Yeah, this
I
definitely
think
reminded me of
Smurfs
Tintin.
are also originally Belgian, though I may be wrong
Yep.
on that one. But Jacques Tardy, I know of sort of tangentially because my father introduced me to one of his more famous characters, Adèle Blanc-Sec.
Ooh, yes. Subject of the Luc Besson film.
Yes.
Yes, I didn't realize that was the same source.
Yes.
All right, right
So
on.
this particular
Yeah, she kicks ass.
yes, she does.
She kicks all the ass.
Adèle Blanc-Sec is sort of halfway between Indiana Jones and Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, in aesthetics. It's in the making of materials on the disc. Jacques Tardy says that April is sort of the younger sister of Adèle Blanc-Sec. Now, I don't know if he meant creatively or if they actually exist in the same world, because I don't think Adèle Blanc-Sec lives in this sort of dystopian steampunk world.
I don't believe so. She ended up in a bit more of a world of proto-steampunk wonders, along with pretty nifty Belphegor reference. That's probably one of those sort of incidental secret handshake characters that we probably ought to talk about at some point as well. But the greatest of the French mummies.
Yeah.
But
didn't realize that was
Yeah.
a reference. Okay.
yes. But no, I mean, actually, worth shouting out at this point to the extraordinary adventures of Adèle Blanc-Sec, the Luc Besson film, which is pretty awesome in its own right.
Yes. Very, very pulpy.
Very, very pulpy. Very, very sort of Louis Feuillade meets Flash Gordon,
See,
except on Earth.
That sounds awesome. We should put this on the pile.
I was gonna
Well,
say,
okay.
have I seen it,
It's-
sweetie?
I
'Cause
don't believe so. I think
Okay.
it was actually before we got together.
It's kind of
Well,
low
I want it
budget,
on my
high
list.
concept pulp science fiction with an Indiana Jones style main character. So
Well,
all the
But
but
Luc
things we
Besson
love.
yeah, I love him. I
It-
love Luc Besson.
it's a high budget by domestic French standards.
Low budget from an American perspective, high budget by
Yes.
French local standards.
It was Besson in any event.
Yeah.
And-
Yay!
yeah.
I do feel that we are probably missing a lot of the stuff in this film just by not knowing Paris and the like, because again, in the making of stuff, apparently all of the set pieces are located at landmarks within Paris. Not obviously the Eiffel Tower, but also particular hills, particular outlooks, famous scenic views that he then goes in and puts the big factories in and covers with smoke and soot and everything like that. So it's I think it's meant to strike much more to home than perhaps we would take.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of wish that we had seen this with Bob, Jenner's brother, who would probably be the person who would be most useful in kind of parsing the divergences from real history. I'm given to understand that Napoleon III was not a complete dick. Uh, so the fact that he starts off the movie as
A complete
a
dick.
complete dick is sort of an interesting kind of divergence in as far as alternate histories go in its own right. But
yeah, but he gets eliminated fairly quickly. So
Yeah.
pretty directly,
Yeah.
along with Marshal Bazin, his number one military strategist. So I find it interesting that somehow avoiding the Franco-Prussian War ends up with a bigger mess than we actually suffered in the real world. Maybe.
But not initially for France, but in the long term, yes.
Yeah. I mean, to say nothing of, reptile overlords. I mean, how many frickin' conspiracy theories can you lean into in one project?
I know, I was thinking that too.
I have to
The
say my
lizard
favorite
people.
aspect of all of the production design in the film is just the idea. I wish we could have seen inside the mechanical suits of the Komodo dragons. Because I just have this image of their little arms working the levers to work the big arms on the outside.
And their feet too, maybe
Yeah.
like moving the feet.
The one
it has a very sort of bipedal Dalek quality to it as
Mhm.
much as anything else. I mean, especially
Speaking-
with the big thing on
Yeah,
the on
and
the
I love that
chest.
it was
Speaking of-
digitigrade.
Yep.
The legs were backwards on those two. Those were, I say backwards. They're not. They were jointed, like
Bet locked.
like one of the aliens on Oh, what was that
The Arrival.
movie? Yes, thanks. The
They're
Arrival.
fet locked.
Okay.
Speaking
saying,
of,
Nate.
yes, speaking of Daleks, did anybody else notice the Dalek
Yep.
amongst the war machines?
There was a Dalek
did
in the
not.
back.
I did not.
Yeah,
No, I missed that.
there was a
Aw.
Dalek in the back.
That is a lovely touch.
I love that.
I mean, steampunk inherently is going to be fairly intertextual in its own right. Between history and historical fiction, and the fact that it's kind of a subgenre of science fiction. I mean, what did somebody once say? Steampunk is what happens when goths discover the color brown. Yes.
That's leaning
you
more into
know-
that's leaning more into the cosplay aspect of things.
That's
Yeah,
definitely
it
leaning into
is.
the cosplay aspect, but it's sort of a fundamentally intertextual thing in its own right. So the fact that there should be a Dalek back there, and that I shouldn't have noticed on the first viewing makes me want to see it again.
Yeah.
I mean,
same.
I sensed a lot of references from Castle in the Sky, a movie we've already done, which is the Ghibli steampunk movie.
Yes.
Like the lizard suits. At one point they crash land and they get out of the ship, and the ship, the part of the ship you see looks like the head of the robots from Castle in the Sky, and it's the same sort of landscape they've landed on as when they reach the castle.
That reference is explicitly intended. Again, from the making of materials, the animators were saying that they were great admirers of the Ghibli movies, and they specified Miyazaki and Takahata. So this is not a group that believes every Ghibli movie is a Miyazaki movie. These are people who actually know what they're talking about and can tell the difference.
We did pretty directly notice Franklin's moving castle.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought
Yes.
the same thing.
One of the style points that I noticed was the way their mouths moved. Sort of like looks like
Yes.
a kidney bean, an upside
Yes.
down kidney bean. when they-
Pizzoni, particularly
Mhm.
when he smiled, that big,
Yeah.
270-degree smile had a very, very Ghibli-ish quality. And the sort of Keystone Cops-ish aspect of a lot of the cops had a very sort of Lupin the Third quality as well. Lupin the Third-ish cops itself being something we're probably going to circle back on in the second half.
Well,
but,
I would
Yeah.
have said on this one just because this particular Pizzoni really reminded me of Zenigata, although much more of
Zenigata
an
has-
asshole.
Zenigata has function.
Yeah.
Zenigata is actually a good policeman.
Yeah, it's true. Pizzoni is
Zenigata is an honorable man. Pizzoni is a piece of shit.
yes.
and we
what
got so
reminded me-
I got excited every time he got in trouble.
What reminded
like-
what reminded me though was specifically their frustration. The absolute dogged determination and utter frustration and inability to catch Lupin or catch April or, whatever their goal might be.
Oh, aside from Pisonia deciding to extend his nap by another 10 minutes at the beginning of the movie, there is a very fuck the police attitude under the hood of this picture.
It is a French film.
Which we will also circle
It is
back
a French
to.
film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a lovely action adventure. Something I really liked about it was the ending. I really like going many years into the future and seeing what everybody is up to, what their lives have been like. I always want that in movies. I always want
too.
more information. Just see how they landed.
It's kind of like the best television series ending of all time.
It was 6 feet under.
6 feet under. You get to see what everybody's doing. And then the way they did it with this, with the portraits on the wall, and television bits of the when they had the empty chairs with the television just showing everything that had happened. That was just beautiful. It was perfect. It really gave us a sense of what had happened and how things were changing and how they were improving and actually converging more on our timeline. So
No, I like I say, I feel confident that in the original language, the bit of Darwin bounding toward the camera on the moon probably would have, made me weep openly.
It was a very good moment.
Let's talk about Darwin, who I'm pretty sure that all of us now have to add to our lists of the all-time great talking cats in motion picture history.
Oh yeah,
voiced by Tony Hale too, from Arrested Development and Veep.
Which is a nice feature of the dub in its own right.
He was recently in what is it? The Benedict Society. It's a Disney show that also has steampunk elements. It's quite good.
Oh, I'll have to look that up.
yeah, I'm gonna actually look up Tony Hale because I feel like I've probably seen him in plenty of things.
He's Buster from Arrested Development,
Oh, yes.
among other things.
Okay,
But
yeah,
that's
I
what he's
didn't
most
put
known
that
as.
together.
Yeah, but I deeply love this story where the single most competent and focused character through the entire thing, the cool guy, the Gandalf, is a talking domesticated cat.
with like really in your face nuts.
With nuts that were just out there and waiting for some lucky lady cat.
And the butthole. I mean, sometimes when you see a cartoon, maybe a cat will have a butthole. Maybe they won't. But in this case, you have butthole and nuts.
Well,
And I'm telling you, these are the things that Lucian my cat Lucian is most proud of and shows us as frequently as possible.
This
Yeah.
then,
So it just felt
however,
real.
was one of cinema's most proudly unneutered tomcats.
Yeah.
His junk was out there.
I've also never seen a human being urinating animated in a film. That was
yeah.
something that stood out to me in this film. I think it was,
That was.
Julius taking a leak.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Into the bucket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very French.
You see the stream and everything.
I
That
have
was
to say
unusual.
that back to Darwin for just a moment. The one thing that Darwin didn't do that was particularly competent and level-headed was, man, he can't help himself but kill those spy rats, can he?
Well, I mean, come on, it's instinct. He said it.
Feline.
And he didn't
that's kind-
actually kill the one of them because it had
That's
gotten
kind
a
of
little
a
bit
fun
of
character nuance
fluid.
in its own right.
I love those spy rats. That was such a cool concept.
That's
And
like
spy
an
pigeons.
encapsulation of steampunk right there. Is a
Yeah,
little
the
rat
spy
with
pigeons.
goggles.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the things that That's probably one of the things that we've been sort of flirting around through all of this. It's not just that it's a nifty steampunk aesthetic. It is a deeply well thought out steampunk world. It is a world that actually makes sense as an evolution from sort of its starting divergence point, pretty much from top to bottom.
Well, it also
that introduction scene, the intro to an exposition to the world and the world building was really intense, just really well done, all at the top of the film.
It also kind of explicitly spells out the kind of lengths you have to go to get a steampunk universe. And that central to the plot was any time a scientist discovered electricity, they got vanished. So of course technology had to stay in the steam era.
Mhm.
I wonder how many of those scientists were real scientists. I mean, obviously you recognize
too.
Einstein.
Pretty much all of them, actually.
Yeah, I think I saw Niels Bohr there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But
Fermi, of course, of Paradox fame.
Mm-hmm.
Marconi. Yeah, no, pretty much everybody that they named was real.
Yeah, but the ones that were actually I didn't recognize them, but just because I'm not like,
I was about to
science
say,
fangirl, scientist
I was about to say, I
fangirl.
have a
Just
feeling
a
that
little bit, but not
with
like
the
that.
exception, of course, of Dr. Wagner, we're all kind of armchair at best in this field. I feel confident that somebody sort of more deeply versed in a lot of this stuff would have probably recognized everybody directly. I believe that both Edison and Tesla were in the string quartet that Rodrigue was waxing rhapsodic over at that one point when he was getting a massage. This is an interesting instance of a movie where the villain would have gotten a lot further with his evil scheme or with his scheme if he hadn't been such a dick.
Yep.
Yeah, even his wife / sister wife, I don't know.
Yeah, I was
That
kind
was a
of.
little incestuous and strange. 'Cause I
Providence
thought they were brother
there-
and sister.
I was about to say the Providence there. I think they're thankfully not terribly explicit about. They were just a couple of Komodo dragons.
Yeah, they
happened
might
to
have just been
have-
a couple of babies
Yeah.
that from different parents that got the
Yeah.
solution.
Who
the
happened to
serum.
have several hundred children. They go by the fact they didn't bother naming them. They were just given
Yep,
numbers.
just numbers.
Well, I mean, the Komodo dragon does lay eggs,
Mhm.
so if they actually are smart enough to make all of the eggs hatch, that's going to turn around into a fairly large quantity in fairly short order.
But they were all male, weren't they? I mean, the babies. I don't know.
Well,
I
don't
mean,
know
I
about-
couldn't tell.
Now, of course, they were all numbers north of 100, so possibly they had several sort of
Broods.
broods
Mhm.
that didn't work out quite so well. So that's sort of an interesting, another interesting detail under the hood of this.
Yeah,
of
but
this
they probably
movie.
wanted to start with triple digits. It just makes things easier.
just to make
Just
even the
stylistically.
least
like
of them feel
007.
just
you
to
know?
make even the least of them feel like they were special.
Right.
that feels a much more Susan Sarandon than J.K. Simmons touch there, but that's all right. Again, going back to this is a pretty good dub. I still really want to see the French version.
No,
we
that's
can't sometime soon. We should show it to Bob.
I just want to pick up a copy of this legit. But yeah, no, I feel confident that Bob would dig it tremendously, and we'd be stopping every 5 minutes for, the interesting thing about this in the real world.
Yeah, here we go. Pause. Hey, did you know?
For reference, for anybody who hasn't spent a whole lot of time with him, Bob is to history as I am to relatively obscure 20th century movies. Anyways, carrying forward.
This is our roommate / his brother. So yeah.
I have a feeling I'm going to have a similar experience when I show this for movie night with my father, who is also a major history buff. But
Yeah,
He'll-
definitely.
He'll
He'll
dig
love
it.
it.
He'll dig it the most.
Mhm.
It's like that's an interesting point to start off.
well, he
from.
would, like I mentioned,
I don't think that would have gone that way though. But okay.
Well, like I mentioned, he was the one who introduced me to Adele Blanc Sec. So
Well, okay.
Full
I think
circle.
he'll probably be down, down,
Mhm.
altogether down.
well. Does anybody have any final thoughts they want to share on April in the Extraordinary World?
For
Lovely
such
film.
for
Dude.
such for such an aesthetically dreary film, it's terrifically beautiful. We haven't even gone into too much detail. This has been one of our less spoilery discussions overall.
We
I mean,
mostly talked about style.
yeah,
We
really.
mostly
Yeah.
talked about style. We haven't particularly talked about the characters, but the characters are actually pretty categorically tremendously endearing, aside from that one dick-ass Komodo dragon. But it's a really, really delightful film, despite the generally sort of dreary aesthetic. It's an interesting counter shot to quite a lot of steampunk to the extent that a lot of steampunk is, well, inherently pro-steampunk. This one kind of searches for the dark corners of the underlying of that aesthetic. But even so, tremendously entertaining picture. Absolutely go out and see it at your soonest convenience.
All right. Well, on that, let's go ahead and take our break. We will be right back. And we're back. Next up, we have Ernest and Celestine, a philosophical French children's film about a young mouse, Celestine, and her friend Ernest, a bear, and their adventures in outrunning the law and prejudice. This was on my pile. Anyone else?
I'd never even heard of it.
I,
so
I
it's on
hadn't
my
heard
pile.
of it.
I had a copy of it. I had heard of it. I hadn't actually seen it yet. So this was a useful
Hmm.
experience in vetting the contents of my extremely large video library.
I think
It-
Wagner was the one that
Yeah.
suggested it
It-
originally.
It earns its place, and amusingly, it sits directly next to Dread, which we covered a couple of weeks ago.
I picked this one up. This was kind of a blind buy, knowing kind of from reputation that it was an Academy Award nominee, which they print right on the box there for you. But I grabbed it and we sort of blind watched it for movie night with my daughter. So it went over quite well.
I was going to say,
Speaking
what
of-
I was
oh,
going to say,
sorry.
what did Lizzie think of it?
She liked it. She liked it quite a bit. And even more interestingly, when we watched it with the English dub naturally on the first run through when it was my daughter watching it, but later on I was watching it a second time through with the French dub, and she sat down and watched a good about last 60% of it or so again in French.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
it turns out we were talking about this movie with Jenner and Bob's folks who were here over the past weekend, and I mentioned it while my son was around, and he's like, Ernest and Celestine? Oh, I saw that. I'm like, what? You what? He's like, yes, it's very good. There's a mouse and a bear.
So Nate, you mentioned up front. I saw the French dub. You mentioned this is Paul Giamatti's in this. Does he play Ernest?
No, he's the rat judge.
Oh,
Oh,
Ah.
okay. I was just wondering who else is.
Forrest Whitaker is Ernest.
Oh yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
neat.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We
I,
watched it in French.
You know,
so
the,
I-
Okay.
the dub cast on this one is legitimately impressive to the point where, whereas with the previous movie, I want to go back and finally watch the French dub. In this one, I kind of want to go back and watch the English dub.
It's
Um,
very good. Forrest Whitaker especially really throws himself into the role. He really, really nails it.
Yeah, the bear Ernest in the French dub is played by Lambert Wilson, who I only know as the Merovingian
The
from the Matrix sequels.
Merovingian, thank you.
Matrix Reloaded, I think. But I mean, he does a great job. But I could totally see
also,
Forrest Whitaker in the role.
Also, Mark Caro's. He was also in Mark Caro's Dante 01, which I mentioned briefly when we were talking about the Jeunet and Caro movies some weeks back as well.
That's an odd one. That one ends peculiarly.
It does indeed. But Lambert Wilson is a really interesting actor. He has a very commanding presence to him. I kind of like in the French dub that he sang Ernest's song as well, which was some of the worst street buskery I've ever seen in a movie, frankly. But
Yeah.
but he threw himself into it with gusto.
I absolutely loved this movie. I really, really
same.
enjoyed it. One thing I really liked about it was a lot of the politics behind it. I have not seen a film that goes so hard on cops as the extension of a capitalist society in a long time. That's the way I viewed them. That all they were doing was supporting the rich man, saving him from the poor man who is Ernest. I mean, the only thing that Ernest, they kept saying it over and over. The only thing that Ernest really did wrong was be hungry.
right.
No, this movie is a very elegant instance of sort of social justice 101. Presented in a form that can be palatable to the young. So this gives us hope for the young,
Well,
Yeah.
you know, the one thing that I really liked
or at
was
least the
when
young,
they were
or at least the young who saw Ernest and Celestine.
in the courtroom scene where they ask the children if they're afraid of Ernest the bear, and they all shake their little heads until the rat
Matron.
orphanage matron says like no, shakes her head. They're like, ah, it's so adorable.
That was a pretty terrific laugh.
They too had the little kidney bean mouths. The-
Yeah.
There is definitely a lot of covert Ghibli influence in this movie as well. Again, a very sort of Lupin-ish quality, just the sort of caperish aspects to it.
I
as well as the cops.
Yeah, they're quite bumbling, but like Zenigata tenacity.
Well,
to the-
I particularly the mouse cops.
Oh, they're like
Jane,
a flood.
Well, it's Keystone Cops is what it was. And I
Yeah.
kept laughing like crazy because I kept seeing them form a Rat King. And I
Yeah.
was like, yes, yes.
always one of those things that's appreciated when it turns up in a movie. It's like, are they turning into a rat king? Are they turning into a rat king? They should turn into a rat king.
Like on Hildy, when that that cartoon that we like on Netflix.
Hilda.
Hilda.
Yeah.
I thought it was Hildy. Well, anyway, Hilda, there's a Rat King. So same thing.
On
It-
a great
something of
Rat
a
King.
side, something of a
it's
sideline. I also watched the new Suicide Squad movie, but that's a totally different topic.
Was
Also
there a
has
Rat
lot
King
of
in
rats
that?
Very
okay.
nearly.
Very
Very nearly.
There was a
Nearly.
rat queen, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's
Mhm.
true.
Yeah, the Rat King is one of those touches to fiction that you don't particularly miss it when it's not there, but you're always grateful when it is there.
And for the viewers that don't know, a Rat King is when a mass of rats are packed too closely together and their tails kind of knot together and their limbs sort of knot together and they all become basically one entity. So,
One
yeah.
enormous collective Rat King.
Mhm.
Rat King.
The another artist who I noticed they kind of were referencing was Jacques Tati with the machines. The way the machines worked and sounded, like the tooth delivery machine in particular, was very Tati-esque.
No, I can definitely see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I say, this had a little bit of sort of steampunk or steampunk adjacent, particularly in the Mouse Society.
Mhm.
But no, just physically, this movie is absolutely gorgeous, and I think that's probably the lead that we should absolutely not bury in this.
That watercolor
Yeah.
style, just I love it. I love watercolors. You know, when I
Yeah,
when I paint. It's the
April
same
in the
thing.
Extraordinary World was an interesting narrative to follow. This was an interesting narrative to follow, but also just lovely to look at from moment to moment. It
Yeah.
was just a gorgeous, gorgeous movie.
They spent a great deal of time in the special features talking about how they did that watercolor, because they couldn't the watercoloring in the animation was of course computer generated, because watercolor is not a consistent enough color to use in hand painted.
Right.
I
It
mean, it wouldn't be
bleeds or
cells.
changes
Yeah.
It
colors.
would bleed, or it changes
Mhm.
density, it changes color,
Right.
but they went to a great deal of trouble to get the patterning and the sort of melding of the colors at the edges and things like that, so that it looked exactly like watercolor. And they basically had to animate a second layer on top of it to get the patterning of the paper that the watercolor seeps into, which gives watercolor all of its texture.
Mm.
So there was a lot of layers and levels, and it's apparently based. They did all of this because the original children's books that this is based on had all watercolor illustrations by the author.
Oh, I'm curious about the books.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that as well, but you go first.
No, I was curious about the books in that I vaguely recall them, but I was wondering if anybody else had read them or knew anything about them.
It
I know
sounds
that I-
familiar, but hey.
I know that I have not read them because I didn't know this was based on a children's book initially.
I have not encountered them. Just based on reading the credits, I am aware that there are books out there. I am curious, given that the conclusion of the movie leans into both Ernest and Celestine working on a series of children's books based on their own experiences. I am wondering,
but kind of like watering it down.
well,
too.
that's the
Yeah.
thing. I'm wondering if this isn't sort of making a joke of itself as a grimdark iteration
Hmm.
of the children's books on which it's ostensibly based.
Well, it would make sense. Apparently, the children's books, it was a series of them, and they didn't. My understanding is they didn't lend themselves to a continuous narrative like is present in this. So it didn't have the story of them running away together and then getting captured by the other species cops and sent to the other species jail cells and things like that. It's more like small snippets, like the first time Ernest encounters Celestine and things like that. And that just little partitioned individual adventures they had. But that's entirely built on my impressions. I don't know if that has any basis in fact.
My impression was fairly similar in this case. But I'm wondering if they weren't kind of starting to create the books that this was based on at the end of this, just kind of making it more gentle for a younger audience.
I absolutely think that's what they were doing.
Mhm.
That's what it felt like, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were basically saying that
And
that
that
Ernest found Celestine in a garbage can, but he didn't try to eat her,
yeah, no,
and that he would just immediately loved her and took her home
Well,
and
she does
nurtured
smack
her.
him.
That was one of the
beautiful.
best moments. Just the sequence of events as he finds her, tries to eat her 3 times in a row while she's trying to introduce herself to him, and holds her hand out. He snaps at it, and she just slaps him across the face.
The implicit joke as much being as anything else being that this isn't, kind of old school Ernest and Celestine. This is grimdark Ernest and Celestine,
Yeah.
whatever that may constitute. That this sort of gentle, sweet, beautiful film is actually a grimdark version of something that's even gentler and sweeter.
But Celestine was like a really good feminine heroine. I mean, she stood up for herself.
She took no shit, not from nobody.
Not from nobody. I mean, hey, she doesn't want to be a dentist, but she feels like she needs to be. And then, they tell her she has to have 50 teeth or she can't come back to dental school. She doesn't even want to go to dental school, but she comes back with 50 teeth within 24 hours. Honestly, it might have been more like 12. But there she is with the teeth. And she's, she was a heroine.
Again,
and,
as Besner suggested, absolutely a searing indictment of capitalist and capitalist-forward culture.
Yes, it really is.
Because fuck the man.
That's right.
The man wants you to be a dentist. The man wants you to find teeth. Fuck him.
Yeah, the man wants you to buy candy. The man wants you to buy teeth.
Yeah.
I wrote in my notes initially.
Or the woman wants you to buy teeth.
Yeah, I wrote underground mouse dentistry. Then I was like, wait, this is not underground. This is just mouse dentistry as it exists in this world. This is just how they do it.
Yeah, but it's literally underground.
Yes,
it's literally underground, but it is.
It is normalized in their society.
It's just a normalized
market.
It's a normalized
It's not black market.
transactive society. So this is both a searing indictment of and yet gentle, a searing yet gentle indictment of both racial prejudice as well as capitalist paradigms. And how French can you get?
Yeah, this is about the most French I've seen in a long time. They Frenched really hard in this.
Oh man, I love that though. They Frenched really hard.
Talking about the visual style and the watercolor a little bit more, I wanted to bring up the spring painting montage when she wants to start painting springtime and everything is swirling around.
Oh, I think she starts with winter and then they progress into springtime with the music and the color swirls.
So I mentioned this to you, Nate. So Nate, for those who don't know, is a video game developer. I told you there's a video game I want you to make out of one of the scenes. What I want you to make is this painting scene as a rhythm game.
Oh wow!
Like a combination of Flower and that Final Fantasy rhythm game called like Theatra Rhythm or something like that.
Oh no,
I think
that was absolutely one of the standout moments in this picture. Even for my 70-plus-year-old folks who are watching it with us, they were like, "Where did you find this?"
By the way,
and it was the wondrous sort of "Where did you find this?" It was it was people who had seen Fantasia originally in its 1960s re-release.
They're completely obsessed with music and art.
Shane, I wrote down your game idea because that sounds awesome.
It would be hard, but I don't know how you would do it because you'd have to create the art as well.
Yeah, and it would have to constantly move. But there was a game that was done all in watercolor Grease, Gris. Entire
Oh
game was
yeah,
all
yeah. I
watercolor.
know that one.
It's absolutely gorgeous, wonderful game.
I will look into that.
No, but I think this is what we should be talking about when we're talking about a movie that actually does have appeal to all, and I mean all ages.
Yep, from my son. Well, okay, I don't know when he saw it, but he would have been a teenager. And your folks who are 70 and us who are in our 40, 50s.
And it just sang to every last one of us. It sang to us. It sang to my folks. It sang to Bob, who is about as jaded a film critic as you can possibly
He was asking
find.
about buying it. He's like, "Can you just get this on Amazon?"
I was like,
Yes,
no,
you can.
no. And I was
Can
like,
you just
no,
order this on
I
Amazon?
found it at my store, but yes, it's around.
Wait,
Yeah,
you found
there's
this at
some-
Best Buy?
Yeah, no, I'll freely allow that I occasionally treat my store as kind of my personal video store, but at the same time, I'm their best customer, so they don't complain.
Oh, I'm just surprised they carry this.
No, it turned up for a few weeks, and I absolutely grabbed it while it was there. And they're pretty good about getting the G Kids stuff just in general.
By the way, way better than Frozen. That's what it lost to.
Oh wow.
That's what you meant.
Oh.
Okay.
I can't.
no,
See, I think
I'm-
they're completely different things.
Apples
I mean,
and oranges, but at the same time, falling in the same Academy Award category. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to go with this. Although I really like Frozen.
No, Frozen.
yeah, but
is
I
great.
dare you to sing any of the songs from Ernest and Celestine.
There are only
Well,
two.
there's the
there are
bear
only-
song.
Speak
there are-
French.
Well, right.
There are only two songs in Ernest and Celestine, and they're almost stubbornly non-catchy.
Which might be an advantage to parents. You're like, you're walking through the store and you're singing some songs from Frozen, and you feel like a complete idiot.
Frozen is actually a musical. This is an animated movie that has a couple of musical numbers in it. It's not the same thing. A street busker in movie that's like that. I don't know. That's like 1930s backstage musicals. It's one of those things where you can debate whether it's an actual musical or a different something or other.
Yeah, but I love musicals. So
I love
mean,
musicals,
that's why
too.
That's why I'm like, I'm not.
But at the
sure. I
same
wanna
time,
say it's
the
better than Frozen.
At the same time, My Name Is Ernest song is almost hilariously a bad song. Blessings to whoever wrote the English subtitles for that they actually made all of the song, all of the lines rhyme.
That is exactly what I was thinking at the time. We haven't even
And-
discussed this, but that is exactly what I was thinking about.
And going back to musical numbers in anime, I'm sure that particularly back in the 90s and the aughts, all of the other gentlemen in this podcast can vouch for instances where exceedingly ingenious translators made stuff rhyme that realistically in no way originally should have rhymed.
I've seen it.
If they had translated it directly from the anime sources. No, props to good aesthetic translation, even if it's not necessarily the most accurate thing in the world.
It was great in the English dub as well. Forrest Whitaker was just really fun during that scene.
Well, I mean, Forrest Whitaker never gives less than 100%. Forrest Whitaker gave 110% in frickin' Species.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Fight me. But
It was actually a really good voice cast. I don't know who Mackenzie Foy is, but I'll mention her because she played Celestine. Lauren Bacall was the gray one, the matron.
Oh, neat.
Her final performance, apparently.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow.
Like I say, I want to go back and actually listen to the dubbed version of that, and you guys know me. How often do I actually say that?
Yeah, I believe so. I watched this on Criterion Channel. I think it has both, so I think I can go back and watch the English. 'Cause I did watch in the original French.
Yeah, and you've got the Blu-ray, babe.
And
so
I've got the
let's
Blu-ray.
do that
so
sometime.
we've got that. We definitely need to undertake that. But
Trey
And
might actually watch it with us, so that would be cool.
The dentist was played by William H. Macy.
Neat.
Lucienne and George, the bear couple that had businesses, simpatico businesses, were Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally.
complimentary.
Yeah,
Wait,
Oh, that's
Oh,
perfect.
Megan Mullally. Oh
Yeah.
my God. and Nick Offerman,
Complimentary
of course.
businesses.
complimentary business. And then the bear judge was Jeffrey Wright.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
So
So
just
I
magnificent voice cast.
I actually saw Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally perform live. Their tour was called Summer of '69, no apostrophe. I saw them live
I
in DC a
love
couple
them
years ago.
so
Yeah,
much.
it was great.
Yeah.
I love them. So they're like the power couple of Hollywood, as
Yep.
far as I'm concerned.
I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were in the dub. I definitely need to go hear it now.
That
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
that is a nice touch on the casting director's part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is a selling point for anybody who
Yeah.
has ever watched Parks and Rec.
Which is
But
not
it's true.
to,
They're actually married in real life.
Yeah.
So
But of course, all this is not to cast any aspersions on the French cast either, who was very good throughout the
absolutely.
French version, and have given me my new favorite word in French, which is marshmallow. Marshmallow!
see, my favorite is Merd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just
Yeah.
Ernest being dragged away by the cops as he is desperately trying to grab the can of the jar of marshmallows away from the sweets shop owner.
It was so charming.
I was about to say,
So
I
hungry.
was about to say, I kind of love the incidental aspect that they never even suggest that sweets are not good food.
Yeah.
In fact, you know,
There-
Celestine says it's actually good for you because you won't get diphtheria, typhus, or any of those other things.
There is no nutritionist side agenda at work here. It's just bears eat sweets. That's the shit bears eat.
Like the honey, like
Gonna eat whatever
Pooh
they
Bear,
want.
like Pooh Bear.
Or the bit when Celestine is making off with the spoon from the hot chocolate down into
Aw.
the going down
Yeah.
into
She'd
the
go nibble
Yeah.
on it.
yeah,
It was
and going
so
down
cute.
into the basement just
Yeah.
back the
And
way.
yeah,
You know,
It-
And I love that the mice. This might be a bit of a divergence, but they thought of their superpower as their ability to gnaw on things.
Yeah.
So she's like gnawing on. She freed the Ernest from the cops when she would nibble on his ropes or his chain or the muzzle. He was actually wearing a muzzle, and the way she would nibble on the spoon with the chocolate. Oh,
Even in Ernest's nightmare, what scares him finally is that all the mice are nibbling.
oh yeah, nibbling all the candy,
So
and
that's their
maybe
power.
him.
That is their power. It
it's-
scares bears.
and at the same time, I think as much as anything else is an indication of my own cinematic predispositions that I kept thinking of Celestine going down into that trapdoor basement as the anti-Evil Dead.
Huh.
Okay.
That-
See,
Yeah,
I thought
I'm
of it
not
more
sure
as
you
she
got
was
there.
comfortable
just
being
sort of a random
underground.
thought. No, anytime that there's a root cellar or a trapdoor basement, that's I'm thinking, is this Evil Dead or not Evil Dead?
Okay, well, see, she was more comfortable underground, the way all the mice had lived forever. Although she was so stunned by being in the woods and in the open air in the country, because she'd always lived underground or maybe snuck up into the town
Yeah,
and
I mean,
seen that. She'd never seen trees and stuff like that. So sweet.
Yeah, no, it has that sort of classical aspect of the escape from the tropes of society into verdant nature, or at least getting away from it all.
Well, she'd
Um,
never done it before. That
she'd
was
never
what
done it
was
before.
so sweet.
Yeah. Whereas Ernest never really appreciated it before until Celestine was there to kind of elucidate the beauty of it all. It's let's talk about what an absolutely beautiful relationship these two have, as
Oh,
much
yeah.
as anything else. Just
They're both
as-
artists.
They're both
Yeah.
artists in different media. Again, a complementary
Complementary,
relationship.
yes.
Exactly.
Ostracized by society.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, it's almost Romeo and Juliet minus the love. I
Yeah.
mean, they're
it
from, like,
it
opposing
is
She's
sides.
a baby mouse,
Well,
and,
no,
a young
it's
mouse, and
absolutely
he's an
a love
adult
story.
bear.
It is a
right,
platonic love
platonic
story.
love.
Mhm.
A family love story, an adoption love story. It's just adorable.
It is a that person you could hang with forever and not complain love story. No, in that regard, as much as anything else, I think it's a very positive message for every conceivable demographic that could consume this movie.
But
I-
we also have to point out that it is also very funny.
It is
It
exceedingly
is.
funny. I
Which-
laughed out loud multiple times. Not only
I don't want people to get the idea that this is a sweet and saccharine or anything like that. It is genuinely like pratfall funny. It is
Slapstick.
slapstick
Yeah.
funny.
it is
It's-
witty funny.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It is
It's-
clever funny. It is first and second level funny.
Yeah,
the
really
whole
good
bit-
point. It's hilarious.
The whole bit where they paint the van in order to hide it from the police, and then Ernest picks up all of his paints and walks directly into the back of the
Yes.
van he just finished painting.
Which is a beautiful, physical joke on top of a beautiful aesthetic joke.
Mhm.
Just showing the sheer level of ingenuity that went into the design of this picture. It's
No, yeah, no, you're right. The detail work in it is phenomenal. One of the details that I really loved in the background was when Ernest was in his cell in the Mouse Kingdom, and there was a little water bottle.
Like a
Oh, yeah.
hamster
The
water
Yeah.
hamster
bottle.
Yep.
It's so cute.
I think my favorite part of Ernest's
Ernest
arrest.
goes to jail.
Ernest goes to jail. I was trying not to say it, but okay. Yes, my favorite
Yeah.
part
You know
of
you
when
wanted
Ernest goes to
to.
jail was how he's handcuffed to two mouse guards, and
And they're
throughout
so
all the
tiny.
proceedings, he's just gesturing around, and the mice are just flailing on the end of his arm.
Given the distinct implication that he respects the force of the law in this instance, even if he could realistically fling it around like a pair of nunchucks if he wanted to. It's a one. I always say it. It is an absolutely wonderful, glorious detail in a film that is full of wonderful and glorious details.
Yeah, we're highly recommending this, by the
Mhm.
way.
Oh yeah,
Sh-
absolutely.
sh-
I
If it's
think I'm
just-
speaking for everybody
Yeah,
when I say
Find,
that.
find this movie, show it to your kids, show it to your parents. You will all love it. If you don't, there's probably something wrong with
Hell, watch it by yourself if you want to.
Yeah.
it.
That's how I did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might actually, as of this recording, next week is Thanksgiving. I might actually bring this or bring it up and show it, when my family gets together. I got two nephews, one's 4, one's 2. They might not get it, but I mean, if we watch the English language, they might be into it. Who knows?
Oh, and then that'll give you a chance to hear the English language track.
There you go.
Then we can talk about it.
Yeah, take your most sarcastic friend, tell them to sit down, shut up, and see what good sincerity looks like.
I'm going to run the science experiment, do the science experiment, and have my mom watch it. So,
Oh,
that-
your mom's
anybody
gonna,
know
your
my
mom's gonna
mom?
love
I-
it. Your
she
mom's
loves
gonna
cute
love
little animals, but she does actually. She's a Republican capitalist, so
Oh no.
She's,
Yeah.
So she's gonna love the scene where
she's
the
not
shop
bad
lady.
for Republican capitalist for what that's worth.
She's gonna love the scene where the candy
she's
shop lady.
retired. I mean, she's not like she doesn't have a shop of her own, but yeah,
She does vote
But-
though.
unfortunately.
She's gonna love the moment where the candy shop woman yells for the police and they immediately show up.
Yeah,
The car just pulls around the
probably.
corner.
It's a perfect
Probably
rest of
there
everybody.
was, there was no question there.
Not
as
sure
to
we needed to
who was
bring
in the
this
right
in,
and who was the wrong. The
frankly,
people
but,
with the money are the right ones. They're the ones that are wronged because they're rich and.
And the police
Are
are taking
missing
care of
things.
all of us.
For what it's worth, she likes me.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
For what it's worth, she likes me. But no, I love my mom. I absolutely adore
No,
my
yeah,
mom.
she,
But
she,
yeah, I'm
she's
thinking I
wonderful.
want to
There are
show
just
her
things we aren't going to talk about this Thanksgiving.
religion and politics. Yeah, yeah.
Good call.
So maybe we should just stay away from Ernest
Yeah.
and Celestine.
She'll still like it, just don't try to kind of parse the deeper meanings involved. She'll,
I think you're right.
yeah, no, it's like
Yeah.
keep it
Yeah.
keep it first level, and maybe it will seep lower, and she might think about it later on. 6 months later, she'll say, "Were you trying to tell me something with that mouse bear movie?"
But let me just say again to our audience, it's not obvious. I mean, it's obvious to us.
It doesn't
'cause,
hit you
we're
over the
kind of
head. That's-
liberal.
that's
like,
the-
but
No,
but it's not. It's not like you're gonna be indoctrinating your children if you show it to them. They're just gonna be like, "What a cute mouse and what a cute bear," and isn't that sweet?
It doesn't hit you over the head. I mean,
No.
realistically, the bear and mouse court and the mouse and bear court is telling, but it feels like the sort of thing that sort of gently plants that concept.
That we're all people and that we all matter and that,
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have anything final they want to say about Ernest and Celestine?
Well, I sort of brought this one to y'all's attention. Shall I break your heart about it now too?
Oh,
no.
God,
So-
no. I'm not sure.
I
Okay,
love
go
this
ahead.
movie. It was great fun. I hate to say it, but I feel like this is destined to be forgotten about. It did not win the Academy Award, which is about the only thing that probably would have kept it in prominence. Instead, you know what everyone thinks of when they think of contemporary French animation.
Ratatouille?
Try again. The Minions.
Oh, yeah.
Illumination is a French animation company, and they did
fuck
the
it.
Despicable Me and Minions film.
Fuck it. When I think of contemporary French animation, I think of this, and I think of Crisis Jung, which I still need a goddamn copy of. Not least because it hasn't actually been released in any publicly available video format. But leaving that aside, this is the sort of thing you should foist on your people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The-
and that's
what-
the only way it's going to get out there, honestly.
what
Because
is-
this
what-
was released in 2012,
Mm.
and until 3 months ago for me, and 2 weeks ago for the rest of y'all, you'd never seen it,
Hey,
Or-
and
or
it's
heard of it.
amazing.
yeah, but I bought this at Best Buy 3 months ago, so at least they're
It's available.
at
Is
least
it-
they're
is it the-
keeping it in print as much as anything else.
Is it
But-
the version you bought? Is it the Criterion Collection edition? Is
I
it
didn't know
on Criterion?
had
No,
it.
it's the
Oh.
standard G
Yeah.
Kids. There isn't actually a Criterion version
Oh, so
of
it's
this.
so it's
But we
just on
can
the channel.
hope. We can hope.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, Criterion by definition has good taste. No.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
The point is,
Yeah.
this is a thing worth sharing with people, particularly with the holiday season upon us.
And I'm also gonna see, we're not getting any sort of kickbacks from G Kids. I mean, we're just saying
No.
what we feel.
We could.
watched
I'd love
this,
we
it.
could, yeah,
And
and we
could
showed it
accept
to
kickbacks.
Bob, who is basically. I'm not gonna watch it if it doesn't have a spaceship in it. That is Bob, and he watched this. He loved it. He wanted to buy it.
Mm.
So if that's,
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I think it's universally appealing.
And
I
if
mean,
you want to give us any kickbacks, G Kids, by all means.
I'll
yes,
retract
please.
I'll retract my statements
Yeah.
before the recording started when we first connected here.
The moral of this, as much as anything else, is if there's something that you love that nobody knows about, what can it hurt to pimp it to everyone you know and care about and respect the taste of, or even don't respect the taist of? You know,
Like this podcast.
like this podcast.
What?
Wait,
What?
wait. Was the don't respect part of the...
No, you
Okay.
respect this podcast,
okay,
so share it with everybody,
Yeah.
please.
Oh.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think the statement came at the quite...
I'm
the
sorry,
wrong
I may have
interlude there.
misunderstood.
Even-
Yeah, I may have misinterpreted
Even
that.
even
properly
shorter
then.
version, pimp yo shit.
Pimp you.
Well said. That's going to do it for us here on What's on the Pile. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at What's on the Pile, or you can visit our website, whatsonthepile.com. Thanks for hanging out.